Hey guys, I'm going to teach you a new song today called Who is the King of the Jungle? So it starts off with Who is the King of the Jungle? So put your arms like a crown. Who is the King of the Sea? So put your arms in a wave-like motion. Who is the King of the Universe? And who is the King of me? Now go, I'll tell ya, J-E-S-U-S. This signifies the nails in Jesus' hands. So J-E-S-U-S, then go, yes, he is the king of me. He is the king of the universe, the jungle, and the sea. And that's it. You got it.
J-E-S-U-S, yes, he is the king of me. He is the king of the universe, the jungle and the sea. Baba, baba, baba. Who is the king of the jungle? Who is the king of the sea? Baba, baba, baba. Who is the king of the universe? And who's the king of me? I'll tell ya, J-E-S-U-S, yes, he is the king of me. He is the king of the universe, the jungle and the sea. Baba, baba, baba. Who is the king of the jungle? Who is the king of the sea? Baba, baba, baba. Who is the king of the universe? And who's the king of me? I'll tell ya, J-E-S-U-S, yes, he is the king of me. He is the king of the universe, the jungle and the sea. Baba, baba, baba. He is the king of the universe, the jungle and the sea. Baba, baba, baba.
Hello everyone, and welcome back to another Bible video. Last time, we talked about the beginning of our world, when God created the heaven and the earth, the animals, the plants, and humans. God created Adam and Eve, and they lived happily in the Garden of Eden until they sinned by disobeying God's command. But God loved us so much that He found a way to heal our broken relationship with Him through the Redeemer, Jesus. This week, let's continue the big God story by talking about a city named Babel and a man named Abram, who you might also know as Abraham. But before we begin, let's think about a question. How tall do you think your house is? If I needed to get up to the roof, what would be the best way? A ladder? Many years ago, in the big God story, a group of people decided they wanted to be able to reach up to the heavens. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. The first people lived in perfect relationship with Him until they chose to disobey Him, and then sin came into the world. When sin came into the world, it broke the people's perfect relationship with God. But God, our Creator, loves His people very much. He promised to send a Redeemer to save the people from sin and heal their relationship with God. God is amazing and worthy of worship. Years passed, and the people of the world continued to disobey God. They began to worship pretend gods. You see, God is worthy of worship, but after people started sinning, they also became confused and started to worship false gods. They even started to worship themselves. This happened to the people who lived in the area called Shinar. The people living in the land of Shinar could have chosen to worship the one true God because He's worthy of worship, but they didn't. They chose to worship false gods and themselves. The people wanted to become famous, so they started to build a huge tower. The building may have looked something like this. God came down to see the tower. The Lord said in Genesis 11:6, "If as one people speaking the same language they could have begun to do this, then nothing they plan to do will be impossible for them. Come, let us go down and confuse their language so they will not understand each other." Imagine that. How weird would it be if you were standing at the top of a ziggurat and said to your friend, "Hand me your brick," but your words came out in German? Gib mir einen Backstein, or French, Donnez-moi un brick. Do you think you would be able to finish building if you couldn't speak your friend's language? Probably not. So by confusing their languages, God kept the tower and the city from being built. So the Lord scattered them from there over all the earth, and they stopped building the city. The place was called Babel, which meant confused. And God scattered the people all over the earth. After the people scattered, God revealed a plan to send a Redeemer to fix people's broken relationship with Him. God called a man, Abram, to be a part of His big plan. Abram lived in a place called Ur with his nephew Lot and his wife Sarai. One night, God spoke to Abraham, "Go from your country to the land I will show you, and I will make you into a great nation, and I will bless you. I will make your name great, and you will be a blessing." God had a special promise for Abram. He called Abram to leave the country he knew so God could start a new nation of people who would worship only Him because He is worthy of worship. So Abram obeyed God and followed Him to a land called Canaan. Later, God told Abram He would give him so many descendants, or family members, that counting them would be like trying to count the stars in the skies. God also promised to give them a land to live in. Wow! Abram believed God and worshipped Him right there by building something called an altar. Abram worshipped God because He is wonderful, powerful, and mighty. God is worthy of worship. The people at Babel worshipped false gods and themselves. Abraham worshipped God by building an altar and choosing to obey Him. At Babel, the people only cared about themselves. So from Abram, whose name God would later change to Abraham, God started a family line from which the Redeemer would eventually be born. God knew that this Redeemer, Jesus Christ, would turn people's hearts back to God so they would worship only Him. God had a plan to bring people into relationship with Him so they could worship Him alone. He is worthy of all worship and praise. Where can you praise God in your life? See you next week!